Hey everyone, I have with me the lovely Asia David. She's an entrepreneur. She is definitely a go-getter, and she's the director of Bunch Magazine. She has many sides to what she does, and so I'm excited to hear more about her personal story and how it's kind of evolved to where she is now, and how she's used her creativity and her passion for the things that she does in her life and in her work. So Asia, why don't you go ahead and tell us your story? Tell us, where you started and where you are now, and a little bit about why.
Okay. I'm like, oh, we're going to take it way back. So I guess the long version, not too long, is that I was very creative from a young age. Since I was like 10 or 12, my mom put me in every art school, not art school, but art program and things like that, all over LA on the weekends. And so I really got into using visual communication and creativity. Like, so my first intro into like the creative world was photography, and that always stuck with me. And I was always around movie sets because my mom worked in the movie business and all of that. And so I knew hands down that I wanted to do something creative, but like most people, I had no idea what that was. I switched everything. I was like, I wanted to be a writer, and then later on I wanted to be a movie director. So I grew up already understanding that I was going to do something visual, but again, I had no idea what. And so fast forward to 18, that's when college started. And I chose to go to college in Seattle. I'm originally from LA. And I still didn't know what I wanted to major in or anything like that. And I spent my freshman year jumping around majors, trying different classes. I thought I wanted to do communications, but I knew it wouldn't feed my soul. And so by the end of freshman year, I literally sat down and I told myself, I want to leave college learning a completely new skill that I didn't have before. Like, that was literally like my one guiding light. It's like, okay, what do you want to learn? And like, just let that happen. And so I knew that I personally was always really jealous of the art kids. Like, I saw them coming out of the art building at the end of campus, and I was like, they're so cool. Like, I want to be their friend, and they're all separate from everybody else with their art packs. Like, I'm such a nerd, but I really was like, I wanted that life. So I looked at the art majors. I just went down the whole list and I just crossed out like what I absolutely could not do. So I knew that I wasn't a studio artist at heart. And I knew that I wasn't an illustrator. To this day, I can't draw a stick figure. But I saw a major called visual communications, and all it said is can work in magazine. And I was like, sold. I don't know what it is, but it just said I can work in magazine. And so and that was another goal that I had when I was a little kid. I always wanted to work in magazines as well. So yeah, I was all over the place, but I realized I was like, okay, this is something that I'm interested in. The description sounds amazing. Still had no idea what it was. I was just going to take a leap into a whole new area. And so then I started to inquire, like, how do I get into this? Because it was actually one of the most competitive majors at my school, which I had no idea. I was like, I didn't know an art major would be competitive.
Yeah.
Because they only let like 20 kids in per graduating class. So I'd only be graduating with 20 other people who did my major. And so it's funny because that was the first time that I really fought hard for something, because I'm used to picking up skills easily and being like, oh, I got this. But all of those classes were really, really hard. And so I knew that I was onto something because I really loved the challenge. And even when it got hard, I still wanted to conquer it. And I had never really felt that way before about anything else. And so I did everything I had to do. I started taking summer school art classes to catch up to the prereqs and all of that. Long story short, I applied, I got in the major. There were tears of joy, which I never experienced before. I called my mom like, oh my God, I'm in. And she's like, are you crying? Yeah, so that was another clue that I was headed in the right direction. And again, I was just like going toward naturally what felt good for me. I didn't have anything figured out. I just knew like this is an area that I want to be associated with. And I paid attention to my own actions in terms of, wow, I'm still not giving up. I'm up till 3 a.m. trying to draw a straight line. Like this is something I've never, had drive to do before. And so when I got in, we started taking classes and they're like, okay, graphic design 101. And I was like, what's graphic design? Like, what is this? They're like, your major. I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, you're in the graphic design major, because it was called visual communications. And that blew my mind because I didn't even know that was my major. And so I always said, like, people in my class disagree, but throughout the course of studying graphic design, I deemed myself like one of the worst people in the classrooms. Like, I was like, I am terrible at this. Like, I have too many ideas and I can't get it down into a concise concept. I just was all over the place. I was that girl that's like, oh God, I don't know what Asia's gonna do today. Because I was just in such a space of being creative and wanting to try everything, which I'm really glad that I did. But I remember in the moment being really stressed out, okay, I suck at my major. And so I ended up graduating for that. Again, even though I sucked, I saw that there was still a passion about it in me, and that it was something that I really wanted to conquer. And so that was my long story about how I got into graphic design. And I graduated with that under my belt. And when I graduated, I moved back to Los Angeles, and I always knew that I wanted to be my own boss. That was something that I just knew. I was that annoying little kid, I'm gonna own 5 companies when I grow up. I'm like, okay. My parents were like, okay, great. But I just knew that was something that I wanted to do. But I also was so confused about what route to take. It's work in an office, gain the skills, and then go off on your own, or just dive in. So I dived in, and it was really hard, but also the best learning experience. And at the end of that, I cold email, backing it up. So I started taking on freelance work. I didn't really spend that summer well. I kept saying, I'm going to redo my portfolio, but I never got to it. I was just so happy to be out of college. And then I realized toward the end of that year, after summer had passed, wait, I need to make money, but I also want to be my own boss. How do I do this? And so through surfing the internet, getting lost in deep Google tunnels, I came across Bunch magazine. And back then they were very, very small. It was just a really pretty website. And I saw that they were print, and I was like, what is this? I want to be a part of it. And so I just cold emailed them. I sent them a few portfolio pieces, introduced myself, and said that I wanted to be an intern. Another side note is that I interned absolutely everywhere in college. I was that crazy kid that had a large major, worked on campus, and then always had a new internship. So yeah, that's something that I did as well. But I also asked to intern for Bunch magazine, and they were like, we'd love to have you. And so that was my first time designing and print layout. And it's funny because that kind of design is called typography, or you're focused a lot around typography. And that was what I was really bad at. But through Bunch, I got to practice a lot. And really my experience as an intern there, I just kept asking for more responsibility. I kept expressing interest in other areas. I'm I'm creating these little graphics over here, but what if we brought that to the web? I was contributing ideas, even though I was at the bottom of the totem pole, and I had the drive to do it. And I think that's what really stood out with them. And so time passed, and then I was elevated to graphic designer, and I was designing more than one page in the print magazine. And really I started off just so Bunch could be a portfolio piece, but I actually ended up falling in love with Bunch. It was the first company that I was really passionate about in the work that I was doing. And so over time passed, and I kept getting more ideas, and then the infrastructure changed a lot. And I came up with the bold idea that I think we needed to be rebranded, which is kind of outrageous for somebody young and not hasn't grown with the team to be like, I think we should rebrand Bunch. And so, but I just spoke my mind, and it also was a very comfortable environment as well. And so the editor-in-chief agreed with me, and then I I did get promoted to creative director, just because I had to take on that full big task, but also because I had such a vision for the magazine. And so that's like how that whole process really happened. And ever since then, me and the editor-in-chief have been really close, and we've kind of built what people know Bunch magazine to be today. So that's kind of the backstory.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. And can you talk a little bit more about like what you kind of do with Bunch magazine and what Bunch is about, if people don't know?
Yeah, so Bunch magazine is a guide for the daring creative. So we really want to inspire people who consider themselves creatives, whether you do art or you do a craft or whatever it is, and we give you tips and tricks on how to do that to your best ability. So we're really like, we want to be the one-stop shop for like, this is how you become an entrepreneur, this is how you excel in your creative field. And we tell stories of other creatives who are doing really well and that we think people would be inspired by. So we're really just like a guide and a one-stop shop to tell stories and inspire people. And what I do for Bunch, I'm like, what don't I do? Under the creative director title, I designed the entire magazine. I have help with sometimes other graphic designers that will jump on, but it's pretty much me designing the entire cover to cover magazine and laying out every page. I also create the theme of each issue. And so if the team decides that this issue should be about design, I'll figure out how to visually translate that and what visual elements that we should use throughout the issue. I also produce photo shoots for our editorial section. We have a lot of contributed work, but we also produce images on our own as well. So I'm kind of the person that's at every photo shoot, making sure things fit the aesthetic, managing my team and making sure the interns and the graphic designers are all on the same line. Other than photo shoots and layout, it's actually a lot more emailing than one would ever imagine. I'm constantly talking to contributors and people who want to be a part of the magazine and, seeing who's a good fit and all of that. So I would say like that's a big part of my job. And then I also am over the digital. So I make sure like all our web stories are laid out correctly, and that we're staying on brand with our messaging and things like that. And so it's kind of like a realm of everything.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you talked about this a little bit, but I can kind of relate being like really good at a lot of things and then trying to decide, okay, like what am I going to focus on? And like, once I commit to that, I'm going to commit, because I think that's hard for a lot of creatives who are, good at a lot of things, is like, okay, how do I choose something? And it sounds like you chose something that was really that you've found your place, and so that's really cool. And tell me a time that you kind of felt like it could be one instance or a single story that really stuck out to you when you kind of like lost that vision, lost that like, why am I here on earth kind of question, and how you kind of worked through getting that back.
Yeah, I'm like every other month I have that. I think when a significant time, I'm like, it's happened a lot. Okay, so I'll say the most recent one. That's when I say that I was going through like a quarter life crisis. I didn't know that was a thing, but I researched it and it's a thing. But it was about middle of last year. I actually wrote about this on my blog because the process was so crazy, but everything. So I also have a design studio on the side. I work with a lot of up and coming entrepreneurs and brand them and do their graphic design. So I'm juggling two big things. It's like I'm also building, but then the business that I love and I'm a part of all the, like daily. And so I came to a point where I felt like I didn't know what I was doing with Bunch, just because I felt like I had plateaued in terms of like producing really cool stuff and just the vision on that area. And then I had actually, I think what sparked it in my like personal business was the fact that I worked with a really troublesome client, and it was like one of the most stressful experiences that I had. And the first time that I really I felt like I failed, but like felt like the project failed. Like it just, nothing went as planned, and like both parties are kind of upset. And so I kind of hit this point and like, okay, what am I doing? Like, do I really know what I'm doing working with clients? Am I really like a good designer? Do I want to pursue this more? Like I knew that I did, but that experience was so like dramatic that it made me rethink everything. And then it's like, okay, I've always been super excited about Bunch, but now I feel like I've come to like a creative rut where I don't know if I'm being fruitful over there. And so I really went through like a summer. It was during the summer of just like, what do I do? And like also my finances were not like the best that they've been. And so there was just stress from like creative, and then from like, wait, I actually have to eat. So let's do that. Yeah. So I just really hit a low point of just like, oh gosh, like I had imposter syndrome 1,000%. I just felt like I'm a huge like fraud. Like people think I'm so cool, and really I can't figure it out. Like I really hit that point, and it lasted for a while. It lasted for about like 2 to 3 months, and that's a long time because I'm usually like, I snap out of things quickly. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're amazing, and I like go on with my day. But I was really stuck, and I was down, and like finances also weren't helping. And so what I really had to do, it's funny because I realized that I coach myself a lot of the time. And so it's like, okay, Asia, like, what do you need to do? And I literally researched like how to get out of a quarter life crisis. And it's funny because it's like anybody could do this when they're feeling stuck. You don't have to be going through that specifically, but I remember just writing down all my accomplishments and everything that I was proud of. And I was like, okay, like, wow, you were like the interning god in college, and look at all the places that you had experience at. You graduated with honors. You talked your way into a new job. Because I officially worked for Bunch, I also cold emailed a marketing company, and I got a position as an art director there. Like that was crazy for me. So I was like, whoa, like all I did was email you guys and all this cool stuff happened. And so I literally wrote down a list of my accomplishments, and it helped me like see that, oh, okay, I got this. Like I am not as far gone as I thought. And then I also allowed myself to focus on my wellness, which sounds like a luxury, but honestly, when like you're stuck and you can't even work, it's like the only other thing to do is actually take care of yourself. And so
Yeah.
I started doing like scheduling yoga into my mornings. I did this thing called Yoga Sculpt, which is crazy, but it really helped reset my mind and get me just motivated in my body again. Because when you're stuck or like feeling lost, it's not just like, okay, I'm not feeling creative right now. It's kind of every area of your life that feels affected. Like I don't know. I wasn't exercising too. So that was why I was feeling so low. So once I started actually physically moving my body, and I listened to a lot of Tony Robbins, and I started just like writing out like, okay, what do you want? Like, what do you want your life to look like and feel like? And kind of getting that all out on paper, I was able to like slowly climb out of the rut that I was in, because I was able to make goals that resonated with me. Not just like, I want a new car, but it's like, no, I want to feel excited every day and be surrounded by beautiful objects. And so after making those types of goals and making a plan, like how to achieve them, then once you have like a step-by-step list, you can't really focus on like the rut that you're in because you're moving again. So that's kind of a time where I felt really, really lost, but like I had to force myself to get out of it, because at the end of the day, like life goes on and things are always going to be moving. And so I knew that I just couldn't stay in this spot. So yeah, that was kind of a hard time, my quarter life crisis.
Yeah. And I what was I going to say? Yeah, that's a hard place to be, kind of like plateauing in a place you when you know like I could do more, but what is that? And um like, and I like how you said, you know, getting in tune with your body, because I think exercise is such a great way to clear the mind and to kind of push the reset button. Um yeah.
That like it changed everything for me. And it's funny because I used to like think like, okay, exercising is going to take up so much time and like I actually just don't feel like it. But like I found a class that like I actually was excited to go because I tried everything before. But everyone I think who's been in my position says like, yeah, when I started exercising, like it does something to your mind. It's like, it's amazing. I recommend it to everybody. Like find something that works for you, whether it's even just like walking around the block or something. You just have to move.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think especially like finding something that really brings you joy. And like my sister is so funny because she's a sorority girl, and just kind of we're very opposite in that way. Um I'm just very mellow, and she's like loves parties and to do all that stuff. And so she's never really been into exercising other than like the treadmill.
Yeah.
And so she comes home. She comes home from Christmas. Was it Christmas? I think it was Christmas or sometime recently. And she comes home and is like, "Oh my gosh, I joined this yoga studio." And I'm like, "What? You joined what?" I was shocked. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I didn't want to go at first, but now she's like, I signed up for membership and I'm going like every day." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh."
That was me too. We were like, what changed? Because I was going to this really intense class every single day. And I'm like, I love yoga sculpt. I'm like, who are you? So now I understand that.
Yeah, so I think it's just about finding, I think, you know, that thing that you love, and if no one else, if people think you're crazy, who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah. So for me, I'm a climber, so I rock climb. So that's my outlet. So me and my husband go to the gym and climb.
Oh, that's
Um, yeah, I recommend that to everyone as well. If you've never climbed before, it's great problem solving and, you know, working through major fears. Like I have the fear of heights like nobody's business. And now I can do things that I, you know, never thought I could do. So,
yeah, that's awesome. I'm
but
like, I want to climb.
yeah, I think you definitely, I think there's some great climbing gyms near you.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
never thought about like the problem solving aspect
yeah.
because with the class that I take, it's more about like to keep pushing yourself past your comfort zone because it's like the most intense yoga ever. You're in a 90-degree room, like it's crazy. I don't know why I do it. It's like dying and like being rebirthed. Like it's that whole process, seriously. But it's like, yeah, it's more about your mind, and they emphasize like pushing past your comfort, like keep going. And I'm like, I'm gonna die if I do one more rep. But yeah, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
don't die. So no, I
Mm-hmm.
completely understand. It is that challenge. And it just gets your mind off of whatever is going on.
Yeah.
I was so worried about you know, like, okay, what am I gonna do for like next week? Like what project do I want to focus on, but I'm not motivated. And it just gets your mind off of absolutely everything because you're in such an intense like focus when you're exercising that that's all your mind can focus on. And so it's a good escape as well. And you're getting a nice body at the same time. So
Right. Right. You're hitting multiple birds with one stone.
exactly.
So you get lots of benefits. So, and it's really is a great thing for creativity. I find, you
Mm-hmm.
know, learning, especially with climbing, and I do yoga as well, and just learning to really listen to your body,
Yeah.
and also giving yourself that self-talk when I'm climbing or out halfway through the wall. There's no one else telling me that I can do it
Yeah.
because I can't hear anyone else. And so I will verbally say out loud to myself, like, okay, you can do this. You can
Yeah.
do it. Don't quit.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, because I know like deep down when I make it to the top or I work through a problem is that I'm going to be really proud of myself.
Yeah.
no matter how terrified I was to
Yeah,
try something
definitely
new.
a confidence booster as well because you overcame something. And that helps when you're stuck in a rut and feeling like, what's my purpose in life? It's like you have to be more confident too at the same time. And so, yeah, I'm like, this turned into like an exercise promo, like, yes,
I know.
but no, it's just like that's the thing that changed everything for me. And so that's why I'm so like I recommend it, because I used to be that person like, no, I'd rather like watch some Netflix, like it's fine. But yeah, so it's funny how that really did help with creativity.
Yeah, it really does, and I'm such an advocate for it. And eventually, when I want to help people, work through and find that creativity through, the outdoors and exercise. And so
Yeah.
I think there's something so profound of getting out of your element. And it solves so many problems for so many people. And it's just that one thing you keep doing, even though you don't feel like doing it sometimes. You feel so much better when you do it. And so I think that kind of translates to other parts of life, when you're like not feeling it and you're like, but I did it and I feel much better.
Exactly.
So yeah, I love that. Let's see, what else do I want to ask you? I think you kind of asked, well, what else? Curious what else that you might do to kind of, if you're working through a problem, I know you exercise, and then if there's anything else that like little rituals that you might do to kind of get back on track. And I know you said you made a list, and I love that, because I think we as humans don't really think about what we want, and you have to be really
daily. We don't focus on it daily. That's the thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I love that, like having to really focus on that and really think through and be like, okay, this is what I want. And taking aside, like, it's not selfish to think about what you want, and really moving forward, and that is really powerful. So if there's anything else that you kind of do, like your daily ritual of how you get into that creative zone and get yourself motivated.
Yeah, I mean, I've been bad about this lately, but something that I really strongly believe in is having slow mornings. Just because, or not slow mornings, but intentional mornings, because I like to wake up early because my mind is the sharpest early in the morning. And so I make sure that like my morning ritual has something in it that helps like get me out of bed. So I usually like wake up around like 5 and or 6 most days. Like I lay in bed until 6, so 6. But yeah, so like I make sure that I wake up early because it just expands the day, obviously. And then I always go downstairs and make lemon and hot water with honey. Like that's like been my ritual of like, okay, that gets you started. I'm like, I have it right here ready. And yeah, so that's kind of the thing that I do consistently. And I try not to look at my phone at all. Like I don't bring it with me downstairs. And then I also try to meditate. So this all happens within like the first 30 minutes of me getting up. It doesn't have to be some super long thing, because a lot of people are like, I don't have time, I'm rushing. But it's like I go downstairs, make my tea, and then I kind of sit in silence just to hear my own thoughts, because I realize how noisy the world is, and so like when you start turning on the computer and stuff, like, there's a lot of noise. And so I try to sit in silence / meditate. And then I also have my list of goals written out. And so I literally, like when my mind can't meditate anymore because I'm not the best at it, but I try to do it. I just kind of go over my goals and read them through. And I'm really big into visualization. And so a lot of people do it different ways, but like when I look at my goal, I really envision myself having it and what it feels like. And I put myself in that space. So if my goal is to like finish a client's website by the end of the day, it's like, okay, what will that feeling be like? What will it take me? It'll take me like glued to my desk today. So what does that mean? I have to like, put on some clothes so I don't feel like getting in my bed, or like, I kind of like visualize how it'll feel and what I look like completing that task. And I also believe in like having a reward set up. So even if it's like, okay, I'm going to go get that overpriced latte, like I'm going to do that afterwards. It's like really just like reminding yourself of your larger goals at the beginning of every day so that you don't get consumed by all the smaller like day-to-day tasks that really don't like that have to get done but don't give you that excitement as to why you're doing what you're doing. So yeah, I think I really focus in on mornings on making sure that like I start the day, and even if I wake up late, I still try to like do something that puts me in that space. So that's really kind of my ritual when staying creative. On a larger scale, I get out my house because I realize I cannot like sometimes if I'm in that rut, like, and I'm already in my house, I'm just going to turn on Hulu or something and like try to distract myself. And so I use that as motivation to like go to the nearest coffee shop and sit, because when I'm around people with like other working energy, it helps me. So it's just like recognizing my patterns and then like conquering them. And then another thing I do also on a larger scale, I surround myself with other creative friends. And so I'll be like, hey, like, let's meet up later on today, like, you know, even just to talk or whatever. And I'm very selective about like who I spend my time with, because all of that feeds into what you're producing and what you focus your day on. So yeah, I just surround myself with people who are kind of like-minded and pursuing the same things as I am. And that motivates me and gets me thinking, because the smallest thing someone says can like spark a whole new idea. And so it's kind of, I've spent a lot of time building that like base around me, just so I can like call those people at a drop of a dime and be like, let's meet up, like, let's work at a coffee shop today. And like really it turns into like talking time, but it's still like all for the bigger purpose. So yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's so crucial to have those people that are like-minded around you and that aren't going to drag you down, but,
Yeah.
you know, encourage you to do things that are maybe more outside of the box and really get it. For me, that's my mom. Me and my mom are like, when we get together, like we are just like, we save the world basically.
Oh.
And my husband doesn't get it. And he's very much, we're different in that way, where I'm more of a dreamer and he's more of a like, okay, how much money is it going to cost?
Yeah.
Very practical.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I just can't be around you when you and your mom go off on something. And I'm like, you know, for us, it's just like, you know, fun banter.
Yeah.
Where for him, he's like, oh my gosh, I actually think you guys are going to do those things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, we're not going to do, you know, whatever we talk about. Sometimes they're like crazy, weird ideas, but it's just fun for us.
Yeah.
So it's
exercising what the possibilities.
Right. It's using your brain and exercising. So when you sift through all these funny or crazy ideas with someone else who gets it, you finally do come to a realization like, oh, that's actually a pretty good idea. Let's talk about that more, or see what, you know, talk through like, what would that actually look like?
That's awesome. You have that with your mom.
Yeah, we're very similar in that way. So it's a blessing and a curse sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, Mom, don't do that.
I totally understand. I'm mostly mom, don't do that. So yeah, it's so vital to have people who get it around you, because I went through like hanging out with different people, and luckily I'm still very close to a lot of the people that I grew up with, and we've kind of been on the same mind track, but I've also met a lot of new people that like get exactly what I'm trying to do right now. So it's like I kind of know the purpose of every friendship, and I don't like mistake one for the other. So it's like, okay, I know if I hang out with this person, I'm going to be really motivated in this area or whatever. And so yeah, I really just cultivate that environment for myself, because I can get into a funk really fast and become unproductive. But, you know, and then I have the friends that I know if I throw out an idea, they're going to hold me accountable. They're going to be like, oh no, this can actually happen. Let's do this. And it'll turn into this big planning thing, which is what I need. And so, no, it's to me, it's one of the most important things to like getting to your next level is who you surround yourself with. You need to be with other dreamers and, you know, people who don't think you're crazy.
Right. Yeah, the key, yeah, especially that don't think you're crazy. I think um sometimes I know I feel like, oh, what I'm doing is crazy making. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, there's other people that are also doing crazy making things and maybe it's not so crazy. So
It
it's
never is. It never is that crazy. It's just people don't get it sometimes. And that's why they're like, oh, that's crazy. So,
right, right. It's just people that may not understand your creative endeavors or um, the path you decide to take that is not as traditional. So
yes.
yeah. And I think a lot of people have a lot of fear around that, and like that fear that they have is kind of projected on people. And I think a lot
Oh,
of the
for sure.
fear that entrepreneurs and creatives have is almost like a reflection of, other people's,
Mhm.
comments towards them versus like our own
Yes.
fears. So
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah. Um, I want to close out, but I want to ask you one last question, and I think it's a really powerful one for people that are listening that, are kind of stuck in a rut, or know they've always wanted something more in life, but are afraid because of the people that are telling them that they can't do it, or themselves. We're our own worst enemy.
Mhm.
Um, and what would you tell someone who's watching, like, if they wanted to just go for it and pursue something, but they were terrified?
Um, well, I'd say that's the best clue as to you're on the right track is being terrified.
Mm-hmm.
Like have visions that, don't scare you. You don't have the right goals or the right visions. So I'd say use that, like turn it into motivation, like turn your fear into like, okay, like excitement. Because
Mm-hmm.
anytime I walked into any situation that I was scared of or even felt like, am I good enough or deserving of this? I turned it into motivation to like be that like ideal girl or woman that I like saw myself being when I was a little kid or something. I kind of go back to those like, like when we're little and we think of ourselves as like 25 because really we think that's 40 for some reason. We think we're still become 25. It's like I remember thinking like I want to be this like savvy creative person, and I kind of go back to that mind space of like this is the moment that can define that. This is the moment, because I am terrified, that means that something's going to change. So really I changed that fear into energy, and then once you start conquering something, once you break it up into baby steps, it's not scary. Because
Mm-hmm.
for me, that was like launching an entire creative studio. Aside from Bunch, it's like I want my own studio and I want to do huge projects with huge fashion brands and all of that. And it's like whenever I really think about the end goal, I'm so nervous. And so yes, always have the end goal in mind, but have your vision set on the next step, because that really eliminates fear when you say, okay, all I have to do to start is buy a domain name, or I need to like, okay, get 2 clients just so I can practice. It's very easy, actionable steps. And so I think when you are afraid and feeling stuck in a rut, you just think of what is the next thing that I have to do. You don't have to think about what you want in 10 years. It's just, what do I need to do right now? Like that's how you do it. And it's funny because I'm actually stealing that from Oprah. Yes, I watch Oprah. But I remember she was talking about when she had, like, if she didn't know something was the next right move, she sat somewhere on her property, of course, on her property. And she's like, I literally just sat under a tree and I said, I'm not moving until I feel what the next right move to be. And the next right move doesn't have to be a big one. It could be like, go eat.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be like, just email this person. Like you have to kind of feel what it should be, but it also takes you being intentional about isolating yourself for a minute and stepping back, and not feeling so anxious with that fear, and just allowing yourself to explore it, because things aren't scary once you kind of face them. And so I'd say the thing that worked for me is just figuring out what is the next thing that I can do. Like the smallest next step? Is it just turning off Netflix? Is that the next step? Is it just putting myself in a coffee shop? That's the next step, you know? And I always say prioritize your dream over the things that have to get done, because a lot of time fear builds up when we keep putting something off and we're thinking it's this big monster in the corner that we keep putting off to the side because we have to take care of the day to day. And so I think it's also about, like, for me in building my own brand, it's like, okay, define who your customer is today. Like, just explore that. Who is she? Where does she live? Or he, you know, and that's the next step that I can take. I'm not worried about becoming this huge studio. I'm just trying to define who I'm talking to right now, you know? So again, it's just figuring out that next step and not looking at the overall scary picture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Yeah, because I think a lot of it can be really overwhelming, because if you do decide, like, to make a list of all the things you have to do, you would never get them all done. Like, you're just never going to get them all done. And that's the way it is. And I think it's just learning to accept learn to accept that and be like, you know, I can do great things, and I will.
Not to cut you off, my computer's gonna die, so I'm gonna run and grab my charger. So
Okay.
percent.
Okay. Sorry. Aisha's going to share a little bit more about what she has to offer, and the link will be below us. And I encourage you to check out her personal page and what she does for Bunch Magazine. Both very awesome, and also follow her on Instagram because she posts really cool stuff. So she's going to share a little bit about that before we close up.
Yeah, so I'd love to help people figure out how to spruce up their web presence, because that's what I do on the side. I build websites. So if you have a website or are trying to figure out an idea, I'd love to offer like a free 15-minute consultation on like things that I see that you can do better or spruce up that would make your overall brand tighter. Or I can, you know, look at it and email you back about it. So I would love to do that and help people, you know, just spruce themselves up and present themselves better. And it's interesting because I've been able to have both sides of like working with clients and building them. And then also I impress like through Bunch. And so I have a lot of people reaching out to me and I can see what they're doing wrong, but like we can't always tell them. And so it's like I have interesting perspectives on both sides. So I'd love if you want to like reach out to somebody and like you don't know how to like, you know, share yourself and what you do. I'm also able to, you know, help you figure out how to approach a brand or something like that. So yeah, I'd love to just talk to people who want to take that next step in their visual presence.
That's awesome. I just want to close out and say thank you, Asia, for taking time out of your morning to interview with me. It's been such a pleasure, and I've really enjoyed talking with you. So
Yeah, me too.
yeah, so thank you so much.